Auzu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I would request the members outside to please be seated. We are about to start our today's program. We are already running late by 10 minutes. Nadeem, would you kindly request the members to please take the seats? Past presidents, luminaries, my worthy members, ladies and gentlemen, on my behalf and on behalf of the Southern Regional Committee, I welcome you all to this flagship event of SRC, the Federal Budget 2009 and 2010. And to proceed with the remaining part of the program, I would like to request Mr. Kashif to please recite few verses from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. As you know, we have gathered here to discuss and share the views of our learned speakers regarding intricacies of the budget. I'm sure we are we have all gathered here with a little heavy heart because the situation in Pakistan is like the worst in our history that we are facing at the moment, and we have very limited avenues available with us for the revenue generation, and of course we are all facing persistent inflation, especially with respect to FPI, food price indexes. There is a shortfall of essential commodities and the rising unemployment, and of course increasing number of people by day falling below the poverty line. Finally, we have got the budget with us, and before giving introduction and inviting my speakers, I would like to say that we should all pray to Allah, Almighty Allah, to grant His peace, to grant His mercy on us as a nation, give us the right wisdom, strength, and commitment to serve the nation and put it back on the track and bring in peace and prosperity back to Pakistan. So we have our legendary speakers who are the luminaries of our profession, Mr. Ibrahim Yaqub Sidat, Mr. Masood Ali Naqvi, Mr. Shabbar Zaidi, and a gentleman who is very well known and is turning out to be a regular speaker from the industry side. He is the former president of Karachi Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Zubair Motiwala. I'm sure he will be joining us sometime after the Asr prayers. So without wasting any further time, I would request our first speaker, Mr. Masood Ali Naqvi, to present this paper on the economic aspect of the budget. Please welcome Mr. Masood Naqvi.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. past presidents who are present here. I don't see the current president around at the moment. The chairman of the regional committee, members of the regional committee, and fellow members of the institute. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here before you to discuss and deliberate on the macroeconomic aspects of the budget. This privilege has been given to me for the last so many years. I don't know whether I deserve it or not, but I would like definitely to recall some of the things which we have discussed before and then take you through where we are today. This is the background under which the budget is being presented. And I think in one of the press reports it's being said that it's a budget of a country at war. That was a situation of a war. This is a situation of insurgency. And I've just got you a glimpse of a recent thing which happened at Peshawar. And that gives you the background that under these circumstances, when we are faced with the challenges of these type, the budget was being presented to the people. I just try to just recap. This slide you have seen before. It's not something new. Before I take you through the budget, I thought I should share with you what is the common man's perception of the economic development and how a common man looks at the budget. And I think if some of you, as you know, there are a number of channels now in Pakistan, and all of the channels were competing with each other to cover the discussion on the economic development and budget. And some were taking views of the common people. And you must have seen that certain people who were participating in those discussions, when they were asked, have they understood the budget, what the budget means for them? And the answer was pretty clear. They don't understand anything further. They like to understand, has anything become cheaper for them? Are they going to have some saving out of what they have as a resource? Or will they be able to reduce the debt which they have accumulated over a period of time? That was the major concern which people had. Because they were concerned was what? The food that should be available to them at affordable prices. They should have health support on an efficient basis. They should have access to utilities, that is water, power, gas, telephone, on a consistent basis at affordable cost. And naturally, the people who are in Karachi have experienced an interesting night yesterday, where most of the Karachi was dark, and there were problems, and still the problems are going on. It's not resumed fully as it should be. I mean, that's what they're looking at, that yes, the supply is not consistent, but the cost is increasing year by year. And that's something which concerns them. They're interested in looking at education. Are they getting good education at low costs? Is that discrimination in terms of the educational institutions, that the institutions of the elite and the institutions of the medium class people and the Pila schools or Kala schools as used to be called, run by the government? Well, these different categories of schools, or then I think to go a little further, the madrasas, I mean, that different levels of the way and the manner in which they could get education. Is that quality education? Are they getting that quality of education? And is it at at a reasonable cost? Is it aligned to the required skills and vocational development demand? And how they know about it, that the person is a graduate, is in the market, is he in a position to get a job? Is he in a position to get employed? And if not, then the education was not properly aligned in terms of the needs which were there. Employment opportunities. And that means they're looking for a massive investment in the human capital. Also, a lot of people, when you talk to them, that this is a national obligation for them to discharge their duty to pay the taxes which are due to them. They come up and question at times, maybe as an excuse at times, that what is the value of that contribution which they are making to the federal, provincial, or the local revenues. Are they getting a value for the contribution which is being made by them? And if not, then why should we make that contribution? That's the type of the attitude or a perception which exists. There should be a potential of vertical migration in terms of the quality of life. That should be the case. The people should be climbing up the ladder rather than climbing down the ladder. And that is something which has been a great concern for the nation for a long time. And is there a mechanism to balance consumptions and savings? Above all, what they're looking at is there a good governance? That's the way the budget is analyzed by a common man. And I'm not talking of a common man who's sitting in a rural area. I'm talking of people who are reasonably educated, living in urban areas. They do question all these type of things which I have described to you. That's the scenario where we are. That's where we are. These are the displaced people who are trying to grab whatever can come on the way. We as a nation are behaving exactly the same way. It is exactly the same way as we are behaving as a nation. Now, naturally, when a government is a politically elected government by a popular vote of the people, that government has to be accountable to its people. And naturally, the driver for that government, for any budget presentation, has to be the welfare of the people. That is what they should be looking at. And I'm giving you all this background before I analyze the budget. And that's the reason I'm just trying to set up. And the idea is that this presentation which is being made by me will set the stage of a macroeconomic environment within which the direct taxes and indirect taxes and the implications for the business would arise. And the three presentations which are going to follow will take those through based on this particular presentation where the environment I'm trying to set the stage for that. Welfare of the people is achieved how? Reduction of unemployment and creation of more jobs. That has to be a target. There has to be a focus on agriculture, value addition, productivity, and research. And I've said it and I repeat that our strength is agriculture. We are an agro-based country. We are an agrarian economy. We have the strength basically in terms of our potential for the agriculture, which exist, agriculture and agro-based industries which exist in this country. And we have not exploited that for any value addition at all. And I've said and I repeat that if we would have concentrated and focused on that, then we would have been the supplier of milk, meat, vegetables, food items, as well as livestock to whole of Middle East. They would have found it more comfortable to import from Pakistan, being a Muslim country, rather than importing meat from Australia or New Zealand. But we haven't been able to do that. Are we in a position to induce growth of manufacturing sector? Because that's the sector which is creating employment opportunities, particularly in the urban areas. And are we looking at the productivity improvement on that area? Have you worked on skills development and training? It's all based on the common man's perception. I'm developing all that based on the common man's perception. There is inequity in the society in terms of the distribution of wealth as well as the income levels, the resources as well as the income. And that inequity as a target for a political government has to be narrowed rather than the gap has to be widened. It has to be narrowed. We have to rationalize subsidies because subsidies provide a benefit without consideration of the level of income of the consumer. Because if you provide a subsidy on a particular item, a man who earns $1 million pays the same, and a man who earns 100 rupees pays the same for that particular cost. So the subsidy has to be rationalized. It has to be targeted for those areas and for those people who really need that. What is our tax GDP ratio? Have we been improving it? There was a long time back, when we were about 12 to 13% of our GDP. Otherwise, we have been around 10%. And this particular year, unfortunately, we have gone down to 9%. We are planning and proposing to have 9.6% actually, which is going to be in the next particular year, 2010 and 2010, 2011. 2009, 2010, sorry. Now, in that 0.6% growth has been basically coming from the carbon tax, which is a talked about tax. That carbon tax is not a new revenue which is being generated. It's a substitution of a non-tax revenue which existed as the Petroleum Development Levy, which is being brought in as a tax revenue, and its contribution is substantial in that particular area. It used to be 129 billion basically in terms of a non-tax revenue, and we just increased it by 15 million this year. So there is no increase in the overall revenue on that. Enhanced social sector allocations. What are we investing on? Education. What are we investing on? Health. What are we investing on in terms of improvement of HDIs, the Human Development Indicators? Provide quality health and other services. I've talked about it. Target reduction of poverty. Now, this is an important issue for a political government, any political government. What has happened is that if you take these criteria of a $2 base, then naturally 50% of our population is below that level. And that is a huge number of people, 80 million people who are living below that $2 level. And something has to be done to improve that situation over a period. Direct cash transfers is one area. Skills development is another area that you create the skills development for them, make them useful, make them employable, provide them some opportunity where they could be self-employed or employed by others. And the other is direct cash transfers. Increase the microfinance reach, access to basic needs. So invest on infrastructure, come up with more development expenditure so that the basic needs are met. And inflation target. Inflation target means number of countries in the world have got this as a major duty of the central bank to make sure that the level which is being set up by the parliament as the target of inflation is not increased at all. We have to remain within that particular level. And I think that's what we need. We have to target the inflation and work on that basis, rather than not being carried by the inflation and then follow the measures to reduce it. Then again a cycle comes and it increases and we bring it down. We have to do things on that basis. I won't take you through these figures. These figures are well known to you. You have gone through those. They have been on the channels. They have been in the press. So these figures are not that important, but just for the sake of it, I have got that here. If you look at that, the overall budget size, which we are talking about, it was 2,087 billion, and now we are talking of about 2,482 billion as the size of the budget for next year. These are the expense side. The important thing is what maneuverability the government has. Look at that. Take two things only. If you take the total current expenditure, the total current expenditure for 2008-2009 was 1,649 billion. And against that 1,649 billion, 1,132 billion was only two items: defense and debt servicing. There used to be a time when defense and debt servicing used to be equal, but we have debt servicing about 752 billion, and basically the defense expenditure is about 311 billion. So 751 and 311, these are the two items. If you take them together, they form part of a substantial part. They form substantial part of the current account or current expenditure, which is there, and the maneuverability is clearly clearly indicated from these figures. These are the type of the comments which have come up in the press. This is budgeting in an uncertain environment. This is another opportunity we have lost, somebody said. They comment that a budget of words or action. Taxation impact is given by some. One of the writers came up with the luxury of being rich, and it's very interesting. I picked up this paragraph particularly for you to read. And it is a matter of great tragedy that successive governments in Pakistan have never thought of using tax policy as a tool for economic development. Their sole stress has been on meeting revenue targets at the time of making annual budgets that has culminated into economic chaos. The persistent failure of our financial managers and tax collectors to overcome fiscal deficits and remove fiscal imbalances has created a situation of an economic disaster. This is the comment of one of the writers in the press. There is a comment coming from the government that it is a budget with a human face. And in response to that, some of the people have come up and said it is a budget of hopes. So these are the various type of comments which have been coming up. That's the another significant thing which came in the press, that what we are trying to do is move to 2011-2012 as part of the medium-term plan to take the GDP size to 4.5%. And these are the other things which have come up: exemption of CVT on a stock trade, dismays Senate committee, which is again a good sign of the democracy. There are things that are being discussed and being criticized in both the houses of the parliament. Now, these were the key objectives which were set up when the budget 2008-2009 was presented. First was restore economic stability, and there were various things through which the economic stability was to be restored. Reduction in fiscal and current account deficit. Now, that has happened. I don't know whether you can read it there or not. The fiscal account deficit, which was 7.6%, has gone down to 4.3%. The current account deficit has also gone down from 8.5% last year to 5.1% this year. The trade deficit has also gone down from 9.3 to 6.5, thanks to the commodity prices going down and the recession in the world, whereby the imports went down. Building foreign exchange reserves to $12 billion, we are around $11 billion. So these targets somehow appear to be met. But let's see how we are planning to work on it and plan for it in terms of the next year. This is the macroeconomic stability which we are looking at in the next year. The real GDP growth of 3.3%, 2009 and 10 against 2%, and by 4 and 4.5% during fiscal year 2010-11 and 2011-12. There's a 3-year sort of a plan which is there. Sectoral growth rates, agriculture 3.8%, manufacturing 1.8%, and services 3.9%. I'll talk of the contribution of the growth, this 2% growth by various sectors. But let me just take you how we are trying to plan for our macroeconomic stability. The inflation target for 2009-10 is 9.5% and will be brought down to 7 and 6% during fiscal year 2011 and 2012. Current expenditure to decline by 15.3% of GDP and 14.7% of GDP in the 2 years to follow. Measures for documentation of the economy, broadening the tax base are being taken. Total revenue to grow by 15.7% and FBR collection to grow by 16.8%. Tax to GDP ratio, they're planning to increase from 9% to 9.6%. And out of which a major contribution is the placement of the levy, which was there as non-tax revenue, from non-tax to tax revenue, and that's how this is being achieved. Revenue as a percentage of GDP is going to be 14.7% next year and 15.1% the year to follow. Let me take you back to the rationalization of subsidies, the second item, which is there. The subsidies, which was 295 billion, this year has been brought down to 252 billion, and the plan for the next year is, and I'll show you that, to bring it down to 132 billion. That's the plan to bring it down. We still continue to have subsidies for WAPDA, KESC for next year as well. Very little for KSC, but WAPDA subsidy continues. Wheat and sugar, we are still going to contribute almost what we did last year, and the others are there. They're talking of removing the cross subsidies in terms of fertilizer as well. And this is how we are going to achieve the 132 billion there. Now, protect vulnerable groups through targeted program of cash transfers. And that is something, how that's being done. There has been a Benazir Income Support Fund of 22 billion, which was there this year, but that was negated by very high inflation figures, which we had, which I'll talk about later. But let's see what we are planning for next year in this particular area. This is what we are planning. Against 22 billion, there's going to be 70 billion, which is allocated for this particular transfer. The social assistance program and health insurance up to rupees 25,000 per family. Poverty exit strategy is being worked out, whereby training and employment and social mobilization